GT America, powered by AWS, has made its return to Sebring International Raceway, a 3.7-mile, 17-turn tour through the Florida Everglades. Just 2 weeks ago, these same drivers were racing on the famed streets of Long Beach, but now the tight confines of a street course have been traded for the tooth-rattling bumps of former airport runways. 3 classes, SRO 3, GT2, and GT4, representing some of the world's top automotive brands, are on hand to write another chapter in the storied history of Sebring. Hello and welcome. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. Amanda Busick is down in the pits for us. It is a pleasure to have your company on a sunny, warm day here in Sebring, Florida. And we're about ready to go for the 5th race of the season for GT America, powered by AWS. As ever, a great mix of cars and drivers sprinkled throughout this field. And one of the great stories, Calvin, is sitting on the Rover pole position. That is George Kurtz, who was forced to miss the pair of races at Long Beach, an emergency in the family. He had to jet away last minute. He comes back focused on trying to climb back into the championship fight. He's a former series champion, and he'll start from pole today.
Yeah, I spoke to George yesterday. He said, I got a lot of work to do, but he is up to the challenge, and certainly after qualifying, he starts in the best spot. But the guy right alongside him, Jason Daskelos, he has really established himself this year as the man to beat for the championship, sweeping both rounds at Long Beach on the streets there. He was a force to be reckoned with. Johnny O, with his experience at Long Beach, couldn't get by him or couldn't keep the victory, let's put it that way. And Jason suddenly has got 3 wins on the season and has that championship lead early.
Well, here in Sebring, cloud cover overhead and quite a bit of humidity, close to 50%. Temperatures around 87 degrees Fahrenheit ambient, and considerably warmer than that there on the track surface. So that will be a challenge for these teams as they get ready to go, managing that heat over the course of a 40-minute sprint race. Let's take a look here in just a moment at how we will line up for this race. This first one of the weekend, as mentioned, George Kurtz for the CrowdStrike by Riley squad, set to start on pole. Jason Daskelos, the championship leader, alongside. Then it's the rookie, Justin Rothberg. He's been impressive all season. Next to the veteran, 8-time winner of the 12 Hours of Sebring, Johnny O'Connell. Ross Schwest, good qualifying effort today. He starts 5th in his rookie GT3 season, next to the veteran Mirko Schultes. Kyle Washington pressing his Fanatec GT chassis into action after a crash earlier in the weekend. He'll start 7th next to Tim Savage, a Floridian, and Jason Bell, another Floridian, set to start in 9th overall. Alan Grossberg, he's on the pole in the GT2 class. He's already been on track here this weekend in a Mini in TC America. Then to GT4, we find Kurt Swearingen on pole. Great effort from the Tennessee native, next to Isaac Sherman, who's perfect on the season, unbeaten in 4 starts. Gray Newell, Todd Perriott make up row number 2 for GT4, and Nick Shanny is set to start out back in the Karis Kallis race team, BMW M4 GT4. Report that we have 1 car in the pit lane. That looks like Jason Bell, who did not set a representative lap time, it's worth saying, in qualifying, Calvin. We noted his qualifying time was several seconds, maybe as many as 5 or 6 seconds a lap slower than what we saw in practice. So maybe some issues they've had to work with necessitating a pit lane start.
Yeah, curious to see what exactly the issue is there. Maybe a protocol issue. Let's take a look at the racetrack here, about 3 3/4 miles, and it's all about the bumps here, respecting those. Just shy of a mile of it is still on these concrete runways. Lots of different track surfaces to deal with. Some big brake zones, though. Plenty of overtaking opportunities here, and these GT3 machines are going to approach almost 160 miles an hour as they brake for Sunset Bend there to complete the lap.
Unique might be an overused word, but I think in this case it is applicable. There is no place like Sebring.
There isn't. There's no place like turn 17. We just saw the shot there under the bridge. The drivers are now approaching that on their end of this only single formation lap, but the bumps through there are something to behold.
Yes, just the 1 formation lap. We saw 2 at the start of the season in Sonoma, same in Long Beach, but it is a long lap around Sebring, and of course the temperatures are nice and hot, so everything should be up to working temperature relatively quickly. No tire warmers in this series, unlike in Fanatec GT, which you'll see later on today. Here comes the field under the bridge, approaching the VP acceleration zone. The Rover Pole Award winner, George Kurtz, has the field in tow. This is the SRO 3 and GT2 field. It'll be a separate start for GT4. You can see them in the background. The green flag is anticipated, and I assume it has waved. Here we go. They're still side by side into turn number 1. Kurtz and Daskalos fighting for the lead. Then it's Rothberg slotting in second in that BMW. Daskalos fighting alongside Kurtz, who sweeps across the bow to consolidate the race lead. In the meantime, here's the GT4 start with Isaac Sherman putting some pressure along the outside of Kurt Swearingen.
Parry out really wide.
Able to put it back on track just in front of Nick Shanny at the back of the GT4 field.
GT4 battle settles in. Great pole position by Kurt Swearingen up front. The two Mercedes being chased down by Justin Rothberg. Had a great start there. Johnny O has dropped back a little bit. Looked like he was up to third initially, but now he's down in 5th position. I'm not sure if there's a little schmozzle there in the turns 3 through 5 complex. Here comes Sherman, pressing for the lead early.
Battle for the top spot in the GT4 ranks. A couple of different teams, each running that Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 platform, running first and second. Swearingen and Sherman. Sherman has not been in this position much this year. He has led the lion's share of the laps through 4 races, going for a 5th win on the trot in his first year of professional road racing.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he likes being not in the lead, so he's putting the pressure on big time here on Kurt Swearingen. Spoke to his teammate in Pirelli GT4, Kai Van Berlo, and he said, we've really worked on Kurt in terms of being a bit more aggressive, and we've certainly seen that on display so far this season.
Veteran of Porsche single-make competition is Kurt Swearingen. Here is Jason Bell. Report from Amanda down in the pits is that it was a throttle issue. They tried resetting the electronics. It did not work initially, but it does look like something has been successful, at least getting him rolling, but problem might not be fully sorted, and that is tough news for Jason Bell, who basically calls this track home. It's the closest to home, at least, on this 2024 season.
Yeah, I think he's in a bad spot down there. I'm not sure if he found one of those safe havens down there in turn 1. It was a bit late for him to get, and Sherman's made the move for the lead here down the Ullman Straight.
Supercuts machine from Rotec Racing around the outside of the ACI Motorsports driver, Kurt Swearingen, and it is Isaac Sherman who has gone to the top spot, looking for 5 straight wins to start the season, but doesn't look like it's done yet. Swearingen looking awfully aggressive, looking inside, weaving back to the outside before settling back in line.
But being in the shadows there, you couldn't really see that bright green Porsche. He was basically mimicking his line.
And I suspect there was a local yellow there in turn 1, so he couldn't have made that move even if he had wanted to. In the meantime, here's Gray Newell, who was a pole sitter earlier this year on the streets of Long Beach for race 1 there. Ultimately finished off the podium in both of those races, but I think perhaps a bit more at home at a natural terrain road course like this one. And Gray Newell looking pretty sporty here in the early going, sitting 3rd for Heart of Racing.
Yeah, he's been really solid, very consistent. That's what he's working on. He seems to have the speed now, and he's just got to work on the consistency, eliminating any tiny mistakes and being a real, genuine championship threat.
Isaac Sherman, whose background is in circle track racing, primarily Legends cars, although he did do some road racing in Legends cars, including winning his class in the Legends Car Road Racing World Finals at Sonoma back in 2000 and a little further back than that, 12 or 13, something to that effect. Safety car is out, presumably for the stricken car of Jason Bell, and that will break off that battle there at the front of the GT4 class. And that looks like race run for Jason Bell. It was supposed to be a 40-minute sprint, and he only made it out of the pits and just barely.
Wow, that's got to be so frustrating for Jason Bell. So looking forward to having a full race weekend. They got that GT3 car very late, and we had the shortened weekend in Sonoma, so they didn't get a lot of run time. And he really felt getting a full, proper race event this weekend would give him the opportunity to get up to speed. He's certainly showing signs of finding pace with that GT3 car, but this is not the day he was looking for. Very unfortunate.
Had the help of newly minted Aston Martin factory driver Enrique Chavez here this weekend, who turned some laps in testing and helped to baseline that car, not just for Jason, but also the sister car that Elias Sabo will be racing alongside Andy Lee in Fanatec GT, and that was a big asset the team felt here this weekend. But tough luck here for Jason Bell, the two-time and defending GT4 champion in GT America, powered by AWS.
Yeah, Chavez is AMG Aston Martin Racing factory pilot and got drafted in. He actually did a half-day test with them at Sonoma on debut, and there is talk of maybe him being drafted into the Sabo and Lee car for the Indy 8 possibly. So they really like what they've seen from the young Portuguese driver.
Super impressive championships in Fanatec GT Europe on his CV. So look at Rosella, the engineer for Johnny O'Connell. Under safety car here for the first time with just over 5 minutes gone by. Gives us a chance to head down to the pits and hear for the first time from Amanda Busick.
Hey, Ryan, and yeah, I know we've been loving following the story of Isaac Sherman. He jumped on the scene in Sonoma and swept that weekend. He would go into Long Beach and do the same. As you said, in Long Beach, he's batting 1,000 to kick off his career in GT America. But another challenge ahead for Isaac is this is his first time to Sebring, and I know you're doing real-time coaching with Isaac right now, Rob, but how do you get a guy ready for a track that's so demanding?
You know, Isaac's just done a great job. I mean, that's the great thing with him, is that we haven't really done that much. I mean, it's an experience thing, and obviously, you know, everyone on this team has got a ton of experience. So, you know, it's, you know, he's been amazing to work with. It's been fantastic, and obviously being his direct teammate at Long Beach was great because I got to see him work up close. But he's been really doing a great job, and then we're super happy to have him on board Rotec.
As we're under this full course yellow condition, I'm sure that's an opportunity to relay some feedback to your driver. What'd you tell him?
Yeah, no, it's more about stuff under safety car, and then also, you know, Kurt Swearingen's been super quick, and so, you know, and I think Kurt knows Sebring really well, so it's one of those things where we're trying to, you know, keep Isaac just appraised of kind of the potential opportunities that Kurt has to pass, and keep his eyes forward, and just go out and set some quick laps.
Good luck today.
Thank you very much.
We'll see Rob in the car later today in Pirelli GT4 America. That's why he was wearing the fire suit up there on the pit box. It was rolled down to his waist, but he's ready to go. Really quick driver and a great asset as well for someone like Isaac Sherman, who is in his first year racing GT cars.
Yeah, and Isaac actually got introduced, I think we mentioned this in the Long Beach broadcast, introduced to the team through Jason Daskalos, who's leading our SRO 3 class this year with 3 victories under his belt, and said this young man is very fast, and they tested him, and boy, he was immediately quick and been very impressive. You could see how much he didn't like being second.
It didn't last long, did it?
Lasted a lap, basically.
Safety car already starting to sprint ahead, so we're that close now to a restart. That championship Isaac Sherman won in Legends cars, that was back in 2010. And again, that was at Sonoma, so that was a track he knew, but Long Beach he did not know. Sebring will be new to this young driver as well, but he has been super impressive coming, again, primarily from a circle track background, including some NASCAR K&N West races. Green flag is out as George Kurtz enters the VP acceleration zone and steps on it, trying to pull away and pull a gap from the championship leader, Jason Daskalos, who has won 3 races already this season. He's been phenomenal. A little further back, Tim Savage maybe under some pressure from Mirko Schultes in the Callaway Corvette. Kyle Washington right there in the mix too. Boy, was he impressive with his pace at the very least in Long Beach, even if the results there didn't necessarily tell the full tale.
Yeah, he's really found a lot of pace here in the offseason. Been doing a bunch of testing, bunch of racing, and certainly a step to up level for this 2024 campaign.
And the e-Boost machine, it's the Porsche, the white, primarily white Porsche coming through the shot at the back. Back to the front, here is Kurtz. Pull a double duty again this weekend with the Fanatec GT program too. Oh, spin at the back of the shot. I think that might have been Savage who went around. He was running 6th at the time. And that will drop him to the back of the pack, but it does not look like that car sustained any damage. And that's good news because this team's been through the wars this weekend. They had a camber shim break that led to a spin and some damage to the car that necessitated them getting spare parts. This is the previous generation Aston that Tim is running. So they actually were able to get some spares from the Heart of Racing team, which has updated their fleet of GT3 Astons. Here's a look
just
at the
lose the
spin.
tail on his own into the brake zone, so maybe he just got a little bit too much rear brake bias there, kept the brake on the nose there and just lose that grip in the rear end, turned it around. Mirko Schultes, he's having a good little rebound here. They lost a lot of test time here this weekend. Basically, the car would just not fire up, and they had everyone going through every nook and cranny of that Callaway Corvette to try and get it fired up. But here we see Rothberg on the attack here down the Ullman Straight. This is a battle for P2.
And this is the best Rothberg has looked, in my mind, this season. He's had good pace, running inside the top 5 regularly, but now looks like a threat perhaps for something a little bit more than that, putting the pressure on the man who has been the dominant force in the championship this year, Jason Daskalos.
Yeah, I spoke to Robbie Foley, who's kind of mentoring him and co-driving with him in Fanatec GT, and he said he's really starting to get up to speed and feeling more confident and getting to some of the circuits that he knows will certainly be helping that process as well. BMW's been quick here this weekend.
Certainly has. You know, we often talk about that BMW being good over curves. I imagine some of that would translate to the bumps here at Sebring, right?
Yeah, certainly, and obviously it's known for having pretty good top-line speed. It all balances it out. They do a balance of performance process that will equalize cars that have a bit more straightaway versus cornering speed, brake zones, things like that. But yeah, I think this is a strong racetrack for BMW, but the Merc that's leading here and running 1-2, I mean, they seem to be good everywhere we go. I think of all of the cars in our championships, this one seems to fit every single track and never have a weak track that we go to.
Consistently, this Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo is there fighting at the front end. Some great teams running these cars as well. You look with 3 iterations of it here inside the top 4. George Kurtz drives for the Riley team. Jason Daskalos for Daskalos Motorsports CRP Racing. And then the 4th place car, let's give a call to Ross Schwest, who's flashed some good speed at times this year, had a win on the road back in Sonoma that ultimately got thrown out after a post-race inspection caught them just slightly underweight. But he's running in the 4th spot at the moment.
Yeah, really impressive to get that victory on the road. As you said, unfortunately, it was taken away for just being a little bit underweight. But nonetheless, really impressive. He's one of these drivers who have stepped up from GT4 competition and has really transitioned very, very nicely to be leading the legend. And as you said, Mr. Sebring with 8 victories at the 12-hour. Johnny O'Rod in his tail right now.
Yes, so that's Schwest Povolato Racing, the silver Mercedes. Under pressure, though, from Johnny O'Connell, who does sweep to the inside and grab this spot away. Schwest looking to fight back, though, on corner exit. Looks like O'Connell's got that covered off, and now he'll put his head down, trying to run down the top 3 for yet another podium. He's been a podium machine this season, Johnny O'Connell. Maybe not the wins that the team was expecting, but they find themselves very much in the championship picture.
Yeah, I think they're kicking themselves a little bit after Long Beach. He had the lead in race 1, had a downshift issue going on at the back straightaway there and lost the lead and race 1 victory to Daskalos, and then had further contact in race 2 at the start with Sofronis and had a little technical issue later in the going there. So they walked away with that, couple of podium results, but could have been so much more. And they realized that this championship is going to be tough, and to give away potential points there on that weekend, can you claw them back? Long championship season, however.
First year for this team and this brand new Audi R8 GT3. They had campaigned in previous, well, a couple generations old actually, Audi, as well as an old Ferrari 458 over the course of the season last year. But this is the new vintage GT3 car. This is the first one they've ever had that has air conditioning. So team owner Kent Hussey told me, Johnny's got no excuses this weekend. He should be nice and comfortable.
When you've been on the sidelines for a little bit like Johnny was, to come back at this level of competition is really hard, and I think he's really ramped up his fitness over the off-season. He recognized last year that this is going to be tough for me, and he's digging deep, and I just love his passion. He just loves racing. He lives and breathes it, and he's with a group that does the same thing. So it's a really great chemistry within that whole Ski Autosport group, and great to see them making things happen on the racetrack.
As you saw, CrowdStrike car holds the CrowdStrike fastest lap, at least right now. George Kurtz just reset the mark at a 2:03.253. Jason Daskelos less than 2/10 off of that pace. He's fallen back to 3/4 of a second behind Kurtz at the line. Rothberg just turned in his best lap, about a half a second off of these two leaders. And then O'Connell, he's got pace on Rothberg, but he has 1.4 seconds to overcome. That is the gap in the battle for the final podium spot.
A little correction there for George going into turn 5, it looked like, but he's looking pretty steady up front. Did a really nice job in qualifying this morning to grab the pole here, and had a really solid qualifying run in Fanatec GT as well. So he's got a busy day ahead of him. Daskelos has got Ryan DL coaching with him this weekend. Ryan lives just up the road in Orlando, and his wife's family are actually based here in Sebring. So this is a home track for the coach of Daskelos, but I think all of that experience that they bring to the table. And I'll tell you what, Daskelos' performance at Long Beach really, really impressed me. I've always loved the way he goes about his driving. He's very aggressive and just goes for it. But his confidence behind the wheel this year, I think, is at a different level.
Yeah. But having Ryan Dial in the camp has to help. Ryan, of course, has history with this CRP racing team. He drove for them in this series when it was known as Pirelli World Challenge back in 2017. Ultimately finished second in points in the Sprint X Championship that year with a couple of wins and a couple of podiums. And so much history and success, of course, here at Sebring as well. A two-time class winner is Ryan Dial, who's in the ear of Daskelos, who, to my eye at least, Cal, is starting to close that gap again.
Yeah, and I spoke to Nick Short, who runs this operation, yesterday about Jason and saying how I'm impressed with him. And he said, yeah, totally agree. He said the one thing that we struggle with Jason a little bit is that he just needs to recognize Sebring is so unique. You have a car that's balanced in the morning, you get to the heat of the day like we're in right now. You can't overdrive it. Do you know what I mean? You've got to recognize where the new threshold of grip is and drive within that. Otherwise, the car's going to feel awful, and then you start to overheat the tires even more.
I'll say this, my eye did not deceive me. Daskelos was a couple tenths quicker that last time around. The top four all lapping within a couple tenths of one another here in the early stages, although we are closing in on the halfway mark, 23 minutes to go. Let's get more from the pits now with Amanda.
Well, there is another race happening in the state of Florida this weekend, and that is the Miami F1 Grand Prix. And we know that George Kurtz is friends with that Mercedes team, but they just had another video come out where, you know, George goes and hangs out with the Mercedes teams, does some laps at whatever circuit they might be at the time. But what I took from the driving ambition video this time is George Kurtz talked about his driving style. He races me against me. And Kyle, I know you're talking about the qualifying effort that George had earlier today. You really see that out of George as a driver. It does seem to be, you know, the competitors are all around him, but it does seem he holds himself accountable.
Yeah, I think it's all about, George has the ability just to go out, recognize what that lap was, think about where he can improve it a little bit, maybe push it a little bit more, and build up to speed. And he's really good at doing that in qualifying. We suddenly saw him leap up the table in qualifying here this morning. There we see who's the dominant force here through the three different sectors. So through Sector 1 it is George Kurtz, our leader. Sector 2 is actually Johnny O'Connell. He's starting to lay down some really competitive lap times aboard that Ski Autosport Audi. Then the 29 car, Rothberg. We talked about the BMW having good straightaway speed. Sector 3 is encountering this Ullman Straight that we're looking at right now.
We talk about the balance of performance, equalizing these disparate packages. Those three cars in those three different sectors on the last lap ran laps to the same tenth of a second as one another. They were all 2:04 flat the last time around. In fact, Kurtz and O'Connell were separated by only 1/1000th of a second on the last lap. But Daskelos has been the quickest of the bunch. Each of the past few, he just ran a 2:03.4, matching George Kurtz, but closing in to under a half a second at the line that time.
George has got that small gap. It's only about half a second, and it's maintained that for the last 3 or 4 laps here. But George seems like he's comfortable with that, not really defending, being protective of the line into some of these brake zones. So he must feel that he's totally on it and not vulnerable in any one spot. Or maybe Daskelos is just trying to weigh up the situation, but doesn't seem like he's a real threat at this point. But that can change in a heartbeat, of course.
You'll see on the running order left-hand side of the screen, Kyle Washington down at the bottom. Report from race control that that car made contact with the wall a couple of laps ago and may have sustained some damage. And that's big news because Kyle came here this weekend with 2 chassis. He damaged one in practice yesterday. That was the one they were planning on running in this race. They've had to then utilize the Fanatec GT chassis for both races, and damage to that car here could also affect his Fanatec GT program later on today.
Yeah, and it's not that far away in terms of the timetable this afternoon. So we've got one race after this one, then we see the Fanatec GT cars gridded. So that is the big gamble, that by entertaining this GT America race with the same chassis, of any kind of hiccup, suddenly you're scrambling to get the car on the grid.
Man, you were looking at it picture in picture there. That's Bob Page, who does so much to manage partnerships for CrowdStrike and AWS. There's Bob. He's a fixture at the racetrack and alongside George Kurtz. Don't know that he knows he's on candid camera.
Well, it takes a team. There's so much going on, particularly with the CrowdStrike entry here. They utilize these race events to entertain a lot of clients, and it takes a lot of orchestration and a good team around you so that George, when he gets behind the wheel, he's fully focused on the task here, which is winning the race. And he's got great people like Bob supporting him every single race weekend.
We know that George will be keeping a close eye on the Mercedes-AMG F1 team racing a few hours away in Miami, part of the Grand Prix weekend. Fitting in some ways, it's happening on the same weekend as we're here in Sebring, because the first ever U.S. Grand Prix was held right here in 1959.
Spoke to George about if he was going to race off down there tomorrow after the finish and conclusion of the Fanatec GT race, and he said no, it's not on the cards, a bit too tight a timetable, but I know he's got his eye on it. He knew all about the Mercedes had a new floor for the F1 cars this weekend, trying to find that pace that seems to be missing for the last couple of seasons.
Now, I didn't ever get this confirmed for sure that it was happening, but I had heard Kyle Washington was going to try to go back and forth because he's also racing Carrera Cup this year, and they're there on the support bill with F1. So maybe we can get confirmation about whether or not that's been the case, but that was at one point at least the plan. Part of a very busy weekend for the GMG racing team, running cars in Carrera Cup as well as several programs here in SRO.
Yeah, I've seen Kyle a lot this weekend, so it's not like he's been missing much anyway, so I'm not sure if that's still happened. I think that may have been the plan initially. We'll see if we can get some confirmation on that, but certainly we saw him in the hotel last night, and he was focused on getting the okay to use that Fanatec GT race. He did not want to miss out on the 2 40-minute sprint races here this weekend with GT America.
And Amanda reports the damage was mostly superficial. It was wing damage, and she got confirmation from the team that the car would be good to go for Fanatec GT later on today. She also confirms that he elected to keep the focus here on Sebring. That's probably a prudent choice. It would have been a cool story, jetting back and forth, and you know, Kyle has the wherewithal to do so. But yeah, that's probably prudent, all things considered.
Sherman now leads GT4 over Swearingen by just over 3 seconds. So again, minor blip in his campaign that he didn't lead the first lap here, but what an impressive young man. Met his grandfather actually at Long Beach, and totally supportive of Isaac's racing program here, and they're very excited about what he's been able to achieve in the early days of this campaign.
Looking here at the fight for 4th and 5th in the GT4 ranks, Todd Perriott in the Flying Lizard Aston, then Nick Shanny in the Karis Kallis Race Team BMW. Quickly do want to mention George Kurtz just put in a new CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race, half a second faster than 2nd or 3rd place, and now has built a big gap, 1.2 seconds at the front of this field. But this is cool to see. I mean, these two had, well, a bit of a scary moment at the very start. Remember, Perriott went wide and then rejoined with a bunch of dust up in the air in front of Shandy, who was very circumspect, and prudently so, about trying to handle that situation on turn 1, lap 1.
Tell you what, oh, Savage is stranded somewhere around the circuit. Not quite sure where that is. But getting back to Nick Shanny, super impressive. I mean, Nick Shanny's a person who had zero sports experience, nothing, and got under the tutelage of Terry Borshello there, made such great strides. When you think about it, Shanny's fast lap is only a couple of tenths off Gray Newell that runs in P3 in class. So I think that's really impressive. This is through turn 3, I believe.
I think he might have got away with this one. Second spin of the day for Tim from nearby Naples, Florida. Just a few hours away from Central Florida here in Sebring along the coast. Take a peek back here at the front of the GT4 field. Isaac Sherman doing what he has done all season long. I think we talked about it some in Long Beach, Cal, but it seems like every year we get a breakout star in this series, and in the early going, it seems like the nominee is this man, Isaac Sherman.
Well, to put it in perspective, I mean, the gap is just over 3 seconds. Swearingen's keeping him honest, but fast lap, I mean, Sherman has it by 1.4 seconds. That is a monstrous delta between he and the rest of this GT4 field.
And in this series, it is the fastest lap from race 1 that sets the grid for race 2. So looks like Sherman is doing what he needs to do to put that car on pole for tomorrow's race, which he's done a couple of times already this season. It's not like he's won all these races from pole. I mean, he has had to work to get to the lead from time to time, but once he's gotten there, he has more or less been unchallenged. Battle for third in SRO 3 with Rothberg now feeling the heat from the 8-time Sebring 12-hour winner, Johnny O'Connell.
Yeah, O'Connell's rebounded nicely. Didn't have a great first lap. Got dropped down to P5 and just got back on the horse and gradually closed in on Rothberg here. Rothberg, couple of fourth-place finishes, I think it was, at Long Beach. And he'd love to hang on to this podium if he can.
Oh, absolutely. What a great learning opportunity here. In your first season of GT3 racing, Justin comes from Ferrari Challenge, making the step up this year to go toe-to-toe with one of the absolute legends of the sport, especially here stateside. And you'd be hard-pressed to find a more accomplished GT driver over the past 3 decades than Johnny O'Connell.
Sherman looks like he's made that move, stick on Parriott.
Shannon doing a good job there, up to 5th. This is how he got it done.
That's through Le Mans curve, I think, coming up on the back straightaway. It's turn 16, I think. Yeah.
Shanny now up into 4th in the GT4 class, but a long ways back, about 7.5 seconds behind Gray Newell, who is 3rd at the moment behind Swearingen and Sherman. This is the battle, though, for 3rd and for 4th overall at an SRO 3. Justin Rothberg, we talked about this too at Long Beach, one of the taller drivers in the paddock, and he tried a couple different GT3 cars, found that the fit in this BMW was the best, and that played a big role in ultimately selecting it. As we look at Kurtz here, who continues to show the way, and several laps ago did set the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race, and he's been running within a few tenths of that time with each subsequent lap.
Yeah, it looks like he definitely has the edge on Jason Daskalos, our championship leader here today, certainly to this point in the race. Still got just a little bit more than a quarter of the race left, 12 minutes still on the board. Rothberg's done a really nice job. I think the real key for Justin at this stage of his short GT3 career is just to be consistent, you know, knock out those laps lap after the other, because you got someone like Johnny O'Connell sitting on your tail. He's going to be like a dog hunting down a bone right here now. He wants that podium. He realized that Daskalov's the championship leader. He's going to increase that gap that he's trying to claw back, but he'd love to be at least one position higher up here in the finishing order.
Looking at fastest race laps, too, O'Connell would start 3rd tomorrow. The front row would be Kurtz and Daskalos, as it was in this race here today. So that puts all the more emphasis on trying to get around Rothberg and maximizing this day. Set yourself up, maybe if there's tires still under you, to go after another fast race lap, try and improve your starting position for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's been quite remarkable so far this year to see how late in the going some of these fast laps can be laid down. I mean, these cars are very weight sensitive, so as you lose that full fuel load, car's a lot lighter, potentially quicker, but then it's down to how much tire degradation you've had at that stage of the race if you can lay down a fast one.
I do think it is potentially possible. Kurtz just ran a lap within a tenth of his best, and in fact the race's best, but he's also been running in clean air this whole race, which puts less of a strain on those Pirellis, so maybe he's in a better position to take advantage of that relative to O'Connell, who has been mired in traffic seemingly all race long.
Yeah, big test here for Rothberg. I mean, Johnny O's going to keep it clean, but if he sees even the slightest opportunity, he's going to try and wedge it in there.
This looks like he's starting to close in. 10 minutes to go here in race 1 of the weekend, race 5 of the season. O'Connell lets it swing wide, now back in line, right in the tire tracks of the rookie Justin Rothberg, who has been impressive thus far. With 10 minutes to go here in race number 1, Amanda, what can you tell us about Johnny O?
Well, and Justin Rothberg is battling the guy that is known as Mr. Sebring. We were in the Hall of Legends for the drivers meeting this week, and there on the board was the plaque of Johnny O'Connell. He was inducted on March 16th, 2012 as Sebring's all-time winner. But in talking with Ski Autoports, they are really happy with the progress that they've seen with this Audi. They are chasing a little more speed, but Johnny relaying back to the team that it just races different here in the heat.
Yeah, I spoke to Rosella Manfrenato, who's the engineer who Johnny absolutely raves about in terms of technical abilities to dial in a race car. And she said, yeah, we're not super happy. I mean, the cars are carrying a little bit more weight than when we tested. When they received this car, see Savage in trouble again. I think that's turn 5 possibly. Sure if he's hot. No, that's going to be close for Sherman.
Hopefully everyone got through that all right. There was a yellow flag waving in the background, so Sherman should hopefully have been aware that there was a car in some strife up ahead. This could get interesting. We've got GT4 traffic for the leaders to contend with. Shanny and Perrion have found one another again, and Perrion has gotten back around Nick Shanny now.
Oh, look at Johnny O. Look for the opportunity. Tries to get down the inside, has to use all of the curbs so there's not contact with he and Rothberg.
The two GT4 cars go side by side. There's not much room to go 3 or 4 wide, but they're going to try. Rothberg with 2 wheels in the grass. O'Connell with 2 wheels in the mud. Rothberg holds him off in some hair-raising stuff in the rundown into the hairpin. Rothberg goes wide. Here comes O'Connell. Back up the inside. This is the fight for the final step of the podium.
Yeah, tires could have been a little bit dirty there as he got to the brake zone as well and missed his marks a little bit. Now they almost hit each other. This is the rundown to turn 10. Big brake zone here. Johnny O could sniff that opportunity and he pounced. That was wild. Both cars off on either side of the road.
Unbelievable. Johnny O'Connell takes the lead. Perriot, by the way, has held off Shanny in all of that in the fight for 4th and 5th in GT4. And Calvin, this is why we love multi-class racing. You get moments like that and how you choose to handle them. Can you use it to your advantage? That skill set is so crucial in sports car racing.
Yeah, it's a real chess match. You have to set everything up, but Johnny was just there, and I think he forced the issue down into turn 5, so then Justin was committed to the right. Johnny had made the run around the GT4 cars to the left. Wasn't enough room for either one of them, so they went 2 wheels off on both sides of the road. That was spectacular stuff.
The lead at the front has stabilized right around 1.2 seconds from Kurtz back to Daskalos with 7 minutes to go. Daskalos hung up briefly behind the third-placed GT4 car of Gray Newell. Might have cost him a little bit of time. Indeed, it did. Kurtz built that lead up to 1.4 seconds now. Daskalos in second, O'Connell third, with Rothberg giving chase. Looks like that's Savage trying to give way to let the leaders come through.
Well, Daskalos held a 7-point lead coming into this round of the championship, and the drop from second to third is a further 3 points, so it could be up to double digits by the end of the day. I don't think Johnny O's going to catch him. It's really a question of how much traffic comes into play here in the last phase of this race, but Jason may be thinking big picture as well. If he doesn't feel he's got a car that's strong enough to really push George Kurtz, maybe just solidifying his point situation. He recognized that George took a big hit by not being at Long Beach whilst Jason swept and scored the maximum 50 points. So he may feel that George Kurtz is not the man he's fighting in this championship. He's more fighting Johnny O, who sits behind him in the race today.
Yeah, it's a really good point for sure. For Kurtz, though, this is exactly what he needed to do coming back after missing Long Beach. Had a pair of third-place finishes to start the year at Sonoma, but looking for his first win of the season. Oh, Savage again! Car doesn't look quite right. And remember, they had some mechanical issues with that car earlier in the weekend, so maybe there's something more to the story there. But to close on George Kurtz, when I saw him on Friday, he said, I am more determined than ever. And he said, I know that if we're going to win this championship, we can't just get podiums anymore. We need to win races.
Yeah, and that maybe changed the level that you're going to run at. Here we see a replay. Look a little bit further back and see that battle between...
Here it comes.
Here it is.
Yeah, it was right there in the
Just couldn't see it.
background. Wow. I mean, that was as spectacular a multi-class moment as you will see. As we reach the 5 minutes to go mark, Kurtz comes by. There's Daskalos then, with the leader in GT4 splitting them. Then third place right here, Johnny O'Connell, using that moment in traffic opportunistically, but not without a fair share of risk. I mean, both Rothberg and O'Connell were leaving it all out there.
Putting it totally on the line, but you just saw a little moment there in the brake zone for turn 3. That's Christensen corner. Just had to give it up, had a little slide going there. But yeah, you know, you just see so much poise and experience when Johnny gets into these racing situations. You just always seems to do the right thing, pick the right lane, whatever the case may be. And that's just experience. That's what Justin Rothberg is gaining every single weekend. He's had a tremendous start to his GT3 campaign, and he'll continue to learn. And the more he races around guys like Johnny O, that'll accelerate that learning curve as well.
Johnny has yet to finish off the podium, so that pass keeps that streak intact. He won race 2 at Sonoma, although that's the one that Ross Schwest actually finished first on the road, but ultimately this car was promoted to the race win there. 2 seconds in a third, that's the balance of the schedule, and looks like maybe another third in the offing here as well, with just a handful of laps remaining. Came into the weekend 7 points back of championship leader Jason Daskalos, but that will continue to grow with Daskalos running second at the moment.
Good battle for 5th here. This is Mirko Schultes feeling the pressure from Ross West. Love Mirko, just love how much he loves his racing, lives in the St. Petersburg area. But here comes Schwest with a big run here into Bishop. He's a brave boy, but wasn't quite enough room.
Tough place to coexist side by side. Schultes in that Callaway Corvette, which is cool to see on the weekend that the new C8 version GT3 Chevy made its series debut with DXDT Corvette Racing. Saw them in qualifying for Fanatec GT earlier today. We'll see them in the big race coming up later this afternoon. But the oldest car on site here in Sebring, I think it's safe to say, is this Callaway Corvette. And Mirko Schultes is proving that it still has some pace in it.
It does, and as I said, they missed a lot of the practice here over the last couple of days because of some technical issue that they're really scratching their heads. Great to see that they got out for quali this morning, and he always seems to race well. I think he laid down the second fastest lap of the race at Long Beach, as I recall, so there's still pace in what you said is a relatively old racing platform.
Car really rumbles too. I mean, it might be the best sounding car here at the track. It's a tough choice to make, I have to say. That's the beauty of sports car racing. And I know balance of performance isn't always the most popular topic, but without it, you wouldn't have the soundtrack of different power plants, different looking cars, front engine, mid-engine, rear engine, naturally aspirated, turbocharged, you name it. And thanks to that BOP, able to run in an equal window performance-wise. I think in many respects we're the beneficiaries of that.
Who's done a really nice job. He's Seems to use a little bit more of the road in terms of his racing line around this circuit than Schwest does behind him.
Caught in traffic. That's Gray Newell just ahead. Schultz is very circumspect, taking his time. Schwest as well, very patient. Newell doing his best not to play too big of a factor. Don't think anyone really benefited from that.
Yeah, that was pretty equal in terms of the delta there coming off that corner versus the approach.
Here is the race leader looking for the white flag. George Kurtz through turn 17. White flag in hand. Tom Hansing signals 1 lap to go at Sebring International Raceway. George Kurtz looking to get back in the championship mix, seeking his first win of the season. There's your leader, the lone car this weekend in the GT2 class. Alan Grossberg having a nice solid day, keeping it on the black stuff.
Had a busy day.
Yes.
Competed in TC America in the TCA class in a Mini. We discussed then about a 400 horsepower difference between the two machines. Totally different animal to drive, but he's adjusted well.
Hard to imagine a bigger transition between race cars on a day than this Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo-based GT2 car and the TCA Spec Mini he was racing in TC America earlier today. But this weekend, it's all been about George Kurtz. A family suffered a loss a couple weeks ago. That's what caused George to have to leave Long Beach. So I suspect this would be an emotional victory if he were to hang on. Right now, the gap is up to 2.2 seconds over the points leader, Jason Daskalos, who continues his strong run of form. He's got 3 wins already this season.
And as I say, I don't think he'll be too heartbroken. He knows that it's a long season and Kurtz could come back if he goes on a roll here through the summer and wins a bunch of races. But I think Daskalos will be thinking of the championship picture, and he will extend that lead up to double digits with Johnny O sitting there in P3.
It's been a great year for Daskalos. You think about those 3 wins. Over the last 2 full seasons, he had 6 wins. So he's already halfway there in the first 5 races, well, 4 races really, of this season alone. This will be his first podium finish that is not a race win, barring something catastrophic for George Kurtz, but it looks firmly under control for the CrowdStrike by Riley driver coming through turn 17 for the final time. George Kurtz bounces back with his first win of the season. The former SRO 3 champion is back in the hunt. He takes the checkered flag first here at Sebring ahead of Daskalos. Johnny O'Connell continues his podium streak. 5 top 3 finishes in 5 races to start 2024. Rothberg finishes 4th. Schultz running 5th. This is your leader in GT4. 5 pro races, 5 race wins for Isaac Sherman in Rotec Racing. A perfect start to 2024. He is yet to be headed in 5 professional starts here in GT America, powered by AWS. Second place to Kurt Swearingen. Another podium for Kurt. Good, solid result from him after starting on pole today. And Gray Newell will complete the podium in GT4. He comes home in 3rd. How about this bounce back? George Kurtz, that is, was the picture of confidence when I spoke to him earlier in the weekend. He knows exactly what he needs to do.
Yeah, and I think it's such a long shot that he can afford to just go for it. Do you know what I mean? You're not driving around thinking about the big picture of the championship so much. It's really just go out and win. Just that's what they have to do each and every weekend from this point forward until they can sort of minimize that gap in the points down to this man, Jason Daskalos. So the 2 Mercedes kind of doing their victory lap together here. But I think Jason will be happy. He'll recognize they need to maybe tweak on that car a little bit more, see if they can sharpen it up overnight and give him something to battle Kurtz for the win. There's such a big swing in the points, 7-point swing between 1st and 2nd. So if you're in a championship fight, it's a 14-point swing if you got 2 drivers who are competing for the same spot in the championship.
And it was 53 points coming into the weekend. The gap between Kurtz and Daskalos down to 46, with still plenty of racing to come here in 2024. Kurtz, Daskalos, O'Connell the podium. Really excited to see what O'Connell can do with a better start tomorrow. Looks like he should line up on the inside of the 2nd row for race 2. Rothberg and Schultz completing the top 5. I think Rothberg continues to impress given his relative lack of experience. See, Ron Schwest comes home in the 6th spot. He ran as high as 4th today. Grossberg, they are 7th overall. Then Sherman, Swearingen, and Newell, the podium in GT2. Shanny did get back around Perriott. Those two had a good fight all race long. I imagine they'll share a few stories and laughs over dinner later on tonight. Trouble for Tim Savage, as you can see, a couple of offs, hit a drive-through penalty for an unsafe rejoin. And then Kyle Washington with some contact and damage. Good news is that chassis will be ready to go per the team for Fanatec GT later today, but really a heartbreaker for Jason Bell, who had such expectations that this would be the weekend to get his first GT3 season jump-started.
Yeah, so much preparation and effort to be here for these race weekends. I'm sure he's got family and followers on site here, so that's a tough one for Jason to handle. He'll have to really dig deep tonight to rebound for tomorrow.
There is George Kurtz, climbing out of his Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo. First win of the season. He's a former champion in this series, but it's been a couple of years now, and one of his sparring partners throughout the years has been Jason Daskalos. They finished 1-2 here today. Let's go down to victory lane and Amanda.
Well, it is the win at Sebring for George Kurtz, and to go back to Long Beach, you did have to withdraw for a family emergency, and drivers will say that winning cures a lot of things, but coming back and seeing the top step of this podium, how satisfying is that, George?
Oh, it's really satisfying. We had the pace all weekend. And, we had bad luck in Sonoma, obviously missed Long Beach, and it's good. Really good win.
Congratulations, George.
You could sense the
As I think you could see him getting emotion there as he takes in that moment. I am going to find Johnny O'Connell as he gets his helmet off. I know he's talking to someone at the moment, but Mr. Sebring made that move on Justin Rothberg. I'm going to talk to you through your helmet at this point, Johnny, but I want to go. I am with Johnny O'Connell, and as you take in this moment, Mr. Sebring, go through that move with Justin.
I'll race that kid any day. That was so much fun. And, I knew I'd need a little bit of help. They had a little bit more out of the corner and all that. But, yeah, so I got to go. And I was hoping, that when I cleared that guy by going, through the grass and everything, that he wouldn't be there, but he was. But that was just, that was such beautiful racing. And what a great young talent. That kid's got a great future. And, we made our car a little bit better. We're not where, the two guys in front of us are yet, but we got overnight, and tomorrow's another day.
That was enjoyable to watch, too.
All right, that's what we do.
And, Ryan, you talk about the guy that keeps batting 1,000 here to kick off his rookie season in GT4 America. Isaac Sherman will see the top step of the podium once again. And we know Rob was on the headset with you. He said that he kind of just lets you do your thing out there. You look at Sonoma, you look at Long Beach, you look at Sebring. What makes this track unique?
It's very technical, very bumpy. You have to know exactly where to go. I mean, to like the inch. It makes the biggest difference. So it kind of took me a little bit to get up to speed. But really yesterday things started to click. And then, yeah, today we pulled home the win. So
congratulations, Isaac. Ryan, can you make it 6?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to go for it.
There's the answer. Yeah. I mean, why not? He's been unflappable all season long and took to his first street course with aplomb the last time out in Long Beach. And here, first trip to Sebring, place that has been a tough place to tame for just about anyone, gets the job done. Highlights from the first of 2 races here this weekend. It all started with George Kurtz on the Roba pole position. And it was a drag race down to turn 1 that Kurtz was able to win. Pole position in GT4 was Kurt Swearingen, but battle there in the first lap. We saw Sherman sweep past. He took the lead, would not relinquish it. This, though, Calvin, was the moment of the race.
Yeah, it's pretty wild there. You see Rothberg to the inside through turn 6 and Johnny O to the outside. He thought if he cleared those GT4 cars, he was going to have that position. He didn't. And Rothberg runs a little bit wide and Johnny O pounces.
The only invitation he needed, but you heard the words there from O'Connell. Rothberg with a bright future ahead of him. At the front of the field, though, George Kurtz gets his first win of the season. His championship hopes are jump-started. Isaac Sherman remains picture perfect in 2024 with a 5th win and as many starts.